Hey y'all! Last night I watched a movie from 2006 that is at once very dated, and it's strange that not that much time has passed, and yet it's like almost like 2006 is just another world compared to 2024, and I would say a much better world in most ways. But also, I found that this movie also was ironically rather relevant to 2024 in ways that it maybe wasn't so relevant to 2006. This movie is just basically a standard issue rom-com, and it's about a guy played by Matthew McConaughey in his glorious youth, well, sort of in his 30s. Very good looking. He's still good looking, but this was maybe the height of his hunkiness, and he's the main character. And ironically, he's like a slacker guy who lives at home with his parents, and doesn't want circumstances to change. He sort of likes the way things are. And the premise of the movie is that the parents, played by Terry Bradshaw, and what's her name from Misery? The mean faced lady from Misery, Kathy Bates. That's right. That's her name, Kathy Bates. Those are the parents of McConaughey's character, whose name is Trip. For some reason, I remember that. So they find out that there's this woman who provides a service where she takes someone a young man who is living with his parents way past the time where it's appropriate for him to do so, and goes out on dates with him, and basically works her magic in a way that lures him, that gets him to commit to living outside of the home, so that he finally leaves the nest. And so that's the screwball comedy sort of premise. Yeah. So what is there to say about this movie that makes it interesting to reflect on? I mean, I think this movie predates the male loneliness crisis. Obviously, that's been much ballyhooed over the last couple of years, especially. The movie came out when there was internet, but before really there was social media. Before people were going around, looking at their phones, before Instagram and all of that. Before you had the entire internet on your phone, it was in the flip phone era. So, a lot had changed, and also I would say, culturally speaking, I'm always, to a degree, painfully aware of the before, what I would call the before time, when movies didn't have to be so woke, in the sense that you didn't always have to have a minority character. You didn't always have to have a gay subplot. This movie actually does have one minority character, and there are a couple of suggestions of people who are homosexual, but those characters are not in the movie itself. Still, it's interesting that these little moments come up where they talk about the minority character, who's this black kid, who we find out later. Okay, spoilers. We find out later that this black kid is the mother or is the son of a woman who Tripp had dated and had fallen in love with, but who tragically died. So that is a little bit more 2024, to have a single mom specter over this movie. But the difference is she's not a character in the movie. We don't see her, and also the fact that she's black, obviously, since her son was black. So they're sort of doing that sort of pre-woke thing in absentia, but other than that, there's really nothing other than that, and the two kind of like weird references to gay people, where there's one moment where a group of parents are talking, older parents are talking, and one of them says their son is an airline flight attendant, and that he often spends the night at a pilot's house, and the other parents exchange knowing looks. Obviously, that the parents don't know or can't or haven't faced up to the fact that their son's probably gay. And this is such a throwaway thing. It's like it's kind of a joke, but it's like it's weird that it's there at all. But it seems like it's in a pre-woke day where they want to cover this sort of thing without it getting in the way of the plot, because the plot mostly involves a bunch of white people, a bunch of very white people, pretty white people. Okay, other than Kathy Bates and Terry Bradshaw. But the younger characters are all quite attractive. So there's also a moment where the black kid, who Tripp calls his nephew, and it's revealed later that he's not a nephew at all, but he's like sort of a stepson, as sort of a stepson in absentia, as it were. He says something about, my teacher has a girlfriend. She's a lesbian. And Tripp says something to him. Well, I know you just care about that because you want her to yourself. You're just jealous of her. And it's sort of a weird little again reference that served no real purpose. So it's like in the pre-woke days that those sorts of references would do. They could just do that, throw those things out into the movie, and then get on with the plot that everybody cares about, which is young, white, attractive people. So McConaughey, or Tripp as his character is in the movie, he's not, of course, the typical hikikomori, or however you say their name, the Japanese men who stay at home all day and don't work. He's not the typical NEET, NEET, that gets talked about today. He's definitely not incel. His thing is he just doesn't want girls who want a commitment from him. He just wants to go and have fun, and when they get too serious, his strategy is he brings them home to sleep with, and the home that he brings them to is his parents' home. So the parents, his father ends up walking in on them having sex, and the girl that he's dating, who thinks he's so great, suddenly says, "You're living with your parents?" And he says, "Yeah, is that a problem?" That's my McConaughey voice. All right. So that's his strategy. That's sort of his gambit. So it's a little different from, the sort of, like the sort of, if a movie were to be made today that featured this sort of character, it would be somebody who was much more desperate and who didn't really wasn't a player, didn't have a way with women, wasn't very attractive the way that McConaughey is. Um, you know, uh, that would be more the typical failure to launch sort of character today. But it is interesting that it's covering this topic of men who are being slackers, men who are in a state of arrested development, and in some way harkens to current uh, circumstances. Now, what happens over the course of the plot? Of course, things are. It's very predictable. I don't even feel like I'm really spoiling that much, but of course, the girl who's seeing him. God, what's her name? I can't remember her name right now. An actress who was once thought of as attractive and now is sort of made fun. She's the actress who gets made fun of by the South Park guys for being ugly. But this was before. This was when she was still considered attractive. The one who was in the star of Sex and the City, or Sex in the City, whatever the hell. That's one of those Mandela effect things. But I can't remember her name. But you don't have to tell me because it's not really that important. Anyway, she plays the girl who the parents employ to date their son to try to get him out of the house, to try to get him, on a career path, instead of him sponging off of them, living in their home with them in his childhood bed and so forth. But what predictably happens is she's just going through her routine, but which has this high success rate supposedly, which is just designed to help get the guy to get more ambition. She dates him. She looks good. She withholds sex, but not in a malicious way, but just to sort of get him to make him more eager to sort of pursue her, and she pretends to be interested in things that he's interested in, and eventually, like along the way, she talks. The way that it usually works is she reaches a point where she says to the guy, "Look, I don't think we're going to work out, but you're a great guy, and you should really get on the path to being an independent man." She manipulates things so that the guy agrees to not live with the parents anymore. But of course, in this circumstance, she does what she'd never had intended to do, which is fall in love. We all saw that coming. Also, McConaughey's character Trip, when he sees that she's getting too serious, and he brings her home to their house, to try to make her feel mortified by the fact that he's living at home with his parents. That's all, of course, something she already knows, and so she actually has sex with him upstairs while his parents are downstairs, and that's sort of throws everything for a loop, and makes the parents somewhat uncomfortable and wonder what's going on here, and everything like that. But eventually, of course, he finds out. It's not important to know how, but he finds out what the situation was all along. He caught feelings for her, she caught feelings for him, but when he finds out, that his parents are paying her to try to get him out of the house, he's very offended, and that causes a rift. But that rift, of course, gets resolved at the end, and they they both confess their true love for one another under very silly circumstances. It's a silly film. There's lots of sort of farcical elements to it, involving involving animals and animals biting the hero, biting Trip on the hand, and because he's not in harmony with the universe, like his sort of new agey, also slacker friend tells him. So what I guess that this movie is interesting in that it exists. It's interesting in that it anticipates this trend which has become more prevalent now, and the world of 2006, I'm sure I remember back in 2006 not really thinking, oh, this is paradise, but compared to 2024, it was, and just to have a movie with sort of pleasant vibes like this one, where characters fall in love and they're happy with one another, and there isn't this resentment, there isn't this effort to put anybody down or put anybody in their place, or to try to show that the woman don't need no man, or any of the kind of stuff the trends that we've seen in movies in later years. Plus, just more. I mean, this was before humor became edgy. Like having a comedy, having funny things happen to characters. Before that became this is offensive because of X, Y, and Z. The very reason why the director of The Hangover, who later directed Joker, can't think of his name right now, but that's the very reason he said he got out of comedy, was because he was tired of everything being offensive, and it was just ridiculous, and he didn't want to do it anymore for that reason. So this was when it was still okay to be funny, to have movies that were funny. It was still okay to show men and women in harmony with one another. It was still okay to show a man getting upset at a woman justifiably, like happens in this movie, which would probably not happen in a movie today, because anytime a woman is shown to have done a bad thing, that's like, oh, that's misogynistic. We can't have that. We have to have women who are perfect all the time, and we have to have bad men who who are always blameworthy, and so forth and so on. I mean, and it's not like that. You see that in every single movie now, but it's just the trend. It's trended to the point where, like, I think the romantic comedy has almost left the building. I don't even know whether they even make romantic comedies anymore. If they do, I mean, I'm sure they still do, but they don't seem to be. They don't seem to make them as much, and they don't seem to be. It seems like much more of a minefield to navigate today. To have characters with foibles and what have you, and have male characters who are sympathetic, and have it not be about race mixing, and have it not be about gay stuff, and all of the stuff, all of the DEI shit that is talked about, that is the talk of the town these days. Although hopefully that's on its way out as well, but who knows? Maybe we've reached peak woke, peak DEI, but you never know. Anyway, I find this movie interesting, and I don't know. It's not a deep movie. It's definitely not a great movie. It may not even be a good movie. But as far as just sort of a time capsule, it's just an interesting movie to see what people were, even though it's not edgy at all. I mean, this is not this is not The Hangover. There's nothing in this movie that's that makes you wince or cringe or thinks ooh, or makes you think to yourself, wow, they're going there. But it is a movie where there are good vibes, and men and women get together and are happy, and even though they have problems, they work it out, and so forth and so on. It's just not something you'd see today. We live in such a gloomy time, and relationships between the sexes are, I would say, I dare say, at an all-time low. For reasons that are manifold and varied, but I've gone into in other cases, but I don't feel like really addressing here. So this is a movie that anticipates this issue, the male loneliness issue, the issue of men, neat, NEET men, even though I guess the main character isn't strictly speaking in NEET, because he kind of has this job that he sort of does a little bit, but we don't see him doing it very much. He's basically just living at home, living off his parents, and being shameless about it. And the reason, it's rooted in heartbreak, as I gave away a moment ago. But nevertheless, it seems to fascinatingly forecasts this problem that is much more of a problem today amongst young men. So those are my thoughts on Failure to Launch. Have you seen it? Let me know. Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching.